Hello, and welcome to the Angus and Pete Show. Views and opinions are strictly those of the presenters and their guests and should not be taken as advice. Goodness knows, we're not qualified to advise you about anything. Side effects may include mild amusement and occasional enlightenment with feelings of embarrassment, apathy, disappointment, and pity.
Welcome to episode 27. I'm Angus Pacey.
And I'm Pete Brown, and we are the Angus and Pete Show.
The place where you could listen to two guys chatting about that riveting world of customer engagement.
Customer engagement, otherwise known as call centre, contact centre, customer service, customer experience, CX, or whatever else you're calling it this week.
And if you want to find out more about us, then just check us out on LinkedIn. So, Pete, what have we got in the post bag this week?
First item's an interesting one. We had Phil and a couple of others got in touch and told us that CX Today's latest vendor video interview says contact centres want to be humanless by 2030. So for those of you that don't know, CX Today is a publication and they regularly have interview sessions with vendors to tout their latest story. And this one, Phil and Co say, made a statement, contact centres want to be humanless by 2030. Well, Phil and Co, Angus and I had a listen to the interview, and apart from it being another vendor with a bit of a Me Too story, really, the humanless tagline was taken totally out of context. It was clickbait. The interviewee actually said that whilst automation will become more prevalent, humans will still want to talk to humans, which is exactly what everyone else is saying. So there's no news there.
So, CX Today, stop hyping the bullshit. You guys are supposed to be real journalists. Mark from Chicago asked us a question, and he said, do you think people will start buying Teslas again now that Elon Musk has exited the Oval Office?
No. Next.
Jan, based in Exeter, I knew him in a previous life. He said to me, I've just joined a small software vendor as a product manager that is responsible for go-to-market. In the company, it seems like everybody has an opinion on who does what, but nobody has a clear definition of what each role is actually responsible for.
Okay.
So he said, you guys seem to have a lot of experience. Can you give me any broad suggestions of what to expect from these different roles?
Well, we covered the go-to-market process from a reseller perspective in episode 14. Do you remember? This little piggy went to market.
That feels like about 3 years ago.
It does seem like a long time ago. I think this ask is a little different. This seems to be more about the specific roles and responsibilities around go-to-market operations in a vendor organisation. I'm pretty sure that this will be of interest to at least our sellers out there. They often have to interact with different groups in the business. Angus, let's make that the topic for this week. You are the go-to-market meister. Well, that's what you keep telling me. When we're thinking about these different roles and responsibilities around go-to-market, who does what? Where does it all start?
This is not a small topic.
Well, you've got about 30 minutes, so do your best.
Okay, right. There are three main groups. For purposes of this discussion, we're assuming they're doing a SaaS product and they have got a reseller channel.
SaaS, software as a service?
Correct, yeah. Thank you for playing dictionary, Pete. The first one that everybody thinks about is the product team, the product house, the product group. That's essentially product management, product marketing, and you've got engineering that might be in that group, or there might be a different organization.
I have a question.
Yep.
What is the difference between product management and product marketing? What distinguishes a product manager from a product marketer?
They are absolutely not the same thing. Product managers are the ones that are focused on the product, why it matters, who's going to buy it, how we're going to build it, what features do we build,
okay,
what fits with the market. Product marketing are the messaging group. They are the ones that define things like the value proposition.
So you've basically got product on the one hand, value proposition on the other hand, which we discussed at some length in the last episode 26. It might be useful to go back and check in with that one if you haven't already done so.
So Product House is really responsible for defining what the product is, why it matters, and making sure that it fits the market. First thing that they think about is the market and the customer. What's the target market? Where's it going to get sold? Company size, geographies are important, which verticals, what companies are suited to the product, what pain points, what problems are they going to solve. The second thing that product managers will do is define and identify what the ideal customer profile is, what is the type of organization that they're going to be targeting, and within that profile, what are the personas that they're going to talk to? Who are the people that they're going to talk to?
Are they doing this before they've built the product or after they've built the product?
Back in the days when I was one of the product management people, this was done right up front and in a great amount of detail. And the reason why we did it up front, we could test with customers and see if our messaging and our thoughts resonated without building a single line of code. We had a hypothesis around this and we went and tested it. A bit of experimentation.
You could use the same process when you've actually built the product to reinvigorate what you've already got, check in and make sure that you're optimizing, because things change, right? Markets move quickly.
This is not a one-time fits all. So you would do this up front. As you go to market and you start rolling stuff out, if you're not getting the traction and the interest that you're expecting, then if you've got half a brain cell and you know what you're doing as a product manager, you loop back and go and do this again real quick.
And do we care about the competition at this stage?
Yes, because you've got to differentiate against your competition. So you better understand your competitors, their strengths, gaps. Then you kind of get into the obvious stuff that you would expect in the product house, features and capabilities. What integrations do you need? How are you going to measure performance of your product? Do you tick all the compliance boxes? Do you have all the part numbers, different plans to accommodate different customers? How are you going to build your core product? What's going to be an add-on? How are you going to upsell the customers? What's the pricing strategy? Make sure that your pricing model is partner friendly and that there's enough money in it for your channel. Because if the dealer's not going to make any money, he's going to go and sell somebody else's product that does make money for him. So taking that into account is critical.
So that pricing strategy is as much about profitability as it is about being attractive to the buying market. And I guess there are vendors that go direct, right? In the CX and contact center space, there are vendors who are primarily direct. So our partners in this mix, are they a complication or are they a benefit?
Well, you could argue both those depending on what you want to do. If you want to scale and go broad, they're absolutely an asset. And it doesn't matter how much margin you're putting on the table for the partner. If they are getting you all over the globe, it will be cheaper than you trying to do it yourself. So I would absolutely argue they're an asset if you're a global vendor, if you want to go across multiple different markets. And then the other thing is that you've got to think about the operations piece. What documentation do you need for the operations people, sales people, technical support? How are you going to escalate issues? How are you going to get feedback? Now, that support readiness is critical.
Does market access come into this as well? Making sure that you can actually deliver your product into the territories that you think are going to make you money?
Absolutely. Go back to market and customer understanding right up front.
Yeah, okay.
It's essentially what you're doing at this stage. You're trying to work out whether you can make money out of this and whether you've got something that people will buy. If you're intending to take this global, or if you're a small software company in Jan's case, and you might want to sell it into Europe, you've got to go and look at the different countries that you're targeting and go, right, can I fit in that country's regulatory landscape? Do you have all the compliance pieces, all those sorts of scenarios? So market access, market readiness, you need to do that up front. This is not an afterthought, because it can be really expensive to do and it could take you a long time.
If you just look at contact center and CX space, we've got voice as a channel, but we've also got the messaging channels, so text messaging and WhatsApp. Different jurisdictions, different countries have very different views about how those channels can be used, whether they're available or not. And provisioning them isn't straightforward. So quite a rat's nest of complexity at a product level when you start to map the product capability onto the countries that you think you might want to sell it in. Knowing that on-the-ground environment is really important to this.
I've learned over time is that you do not give this job to a rookie.
Right, okay.
You give it to people that are very experienced at building products in different markets and different countries, because they know what to look for. They know what the gotchas are. This is not a learn-on-the-job task. Product marketing, So what's the messaging framework? What's the value proposition? Making sure your value proposition is aligned with the buyers, your customer profile, and those different personas. They've got to build the data sheets, all the case studies, sales decks. They're the content factory. And the other thing is that they are the people that should be creating demo flows, scripts, and making sure that you've got demo environments. And this is really important for partners. This is not an afterthought. And please do not give this to the engineers to build, because they don't think about the end-to-end process and the experience for a partner. Now, this has got to be seamless. And if there's friction in this process, the partner's going to go somewhere else.
So this is the product proposition, the core messaging, the content and the collateral to support it, and the demos and the trials to show it off and show it working, the responsibility of product marketing.
Yeah, it sits in the product house. Now, in different vendors that I've interacted with, sometimes it's a bit of product marketing working with product managers. There's the virtual teams that get created that do this. But I think what is important is the product house builds all this stuff, but they're not necessarily the ones that execute or take it to the partners. That's not their job.
So who owns route to market through channel organizations, through resellers? Who owns that?
So let's jump from the product house to the channel org. Their job is focused on the channel strategy and how they enable the partners. They understand the segmentation of the partners, how big they are, what the capabilities are, who they specialize selling to, and they've got all the engagement models. They know how to recruit partners, and they have all the legals and agreements, and this is a process organization from that side. But they also know how to enable partners. They know how to access them. And they've got the partners' ears. The partners expect them to be the ones doing that. If somebody deep in engineering in the product house starts trying to find partners to do some stuff with, they'll struggle without the partner organization. They don't have those relationships.
So you need people that really understand how resellers, partners, systems integrators work, how they make their money, how they motivate their salespeople.
Yeah, absolutely. If you think about the partner people, that partner channel group, they're business development. So they've got all the assets that are needed to help partners sell. They've got all the mechanisms to do deal registration, track what's going on, give access to resources. And then they've got all the financial stuff. They know how to drive out the incentives, the compensation, spiffs. Let me explain that one, because I've had a lot of people go, yeah, you guys always talk about spiffs, but what is a spiff? It's a sales performance incentive fund.
So a little bit extra to make sure that your salespeople and your partners, resellers, salespeople are focused on your product rather than someone else's.
Correct. It's a carrot. Do this for me and I'll give you something. They also then have rebates, market development funds to help partners go to market, and those get tied to performance and different shaping behaviors and that sort of stuff.
So we've spoken about product managers, we've spoken about product marketing, We've touched on the partner organisation. Someone's got to generate demand for this stuff as well, which I would call marketing. I understand how product managers are different to product marketeers. How are product marketeers different to marketing? The crayons and paint department, the people that generate demand, that they have a part to play in this go-to-market as well.
So demand generation, channel organizations are the ones that actually have levers to pull to generate demand through partners. They will have channel marketing programs, which allows them to help fund and support joint campaigns between you as the vendor and the partner. They'll run webinars, events, they'll offer co-branding. They've got the mechanisms to do that. And those are investment funds. And those investment funds sit in that organization's budget. It doesn't come from the product house. It comes from the channel organization. They also have the mechanisms to explain how ordering and billing works, how orders are placed. So they are the ones that explain it to the partners. They're the ones that answer those questions on a day-to-day basis. But the working assumption is that the product house has done their job and created those mechanisms when they built their product.
Billing mechanisms, order processing mechanisms, moves and change mechanisms are all part of the product, as well as the actual bells and whistles and features and functions.
Correct. They're part of the product. The channel organization will then execute on training the partners how to use them.
When you're selling through resellers, do you need a sales team if you're a vendor?
I would argue yes, because you need to have that deep knowledge, but also you want to influence the sales and the buying process as much as you can. Especially in our space, customer experience solutions have a lot of moving parts to them. The sales team or the business development team in a vendor, their job is to make sure that there is alignment between their business development and the partners and making sure that they work together. They've got to be working with the channel organization to make sure they don't cross across them. Their major job is supporting deals that have been qualified and they're busy working them through. So technical pre-sales resources, helping with request for proposal answers, RFP support.
So basically a parallel sales force, if you like, who's designed to manage at the deal level, but also generate demand and develop business directly
with the customer. Yeah. You'll quite often hear push and pull, where the high touch business development coming from the vendor is supposed to create pull. And the partners are the ones that are really pushing that product out. Now, I say supposed to. I've seen it work very successfully in some organizations, and it's been an absolute car crash in others, just because there was no coordination between them and people weren't playing in position. This starts going horribly wrong when people play out of position.
So talking about playing in position, how do you get your sales teams ready?
You've got a sales ops function.
Sales
operations, certainly sellers that I've come across think sales ops, their sole job in life is to look at the forecast, beat everybody up on forecast calls on a weekly basis, hand you lists of customers that you've got to go and touch, and generate work for salespeople, and then generate even more work for reporting on what the salespeople haven't been doing. But that's not strictly true. Everything that's very visible is that sort of optimization of productivity. That is the sales pipeline tracking, forecasting, handoffs, that sort of thing. But they are also the ones to make sure that the sales training happens so that they've got the collateral going to salespeople that's lined up with whatever sales focus is being driven. They've got all the information on the products, and also the compensation of the salespeople, the comp plans, is aligned into what they're trying to do. They're also making sure that the salespeople know what the ordering guides are. They've got the use cases, the examples. They are the ones that make sure the salespeople have got the right information.
Okay.
Sales ops are also the ones that have got to make sure that the sales team are customer-centric, not feature-centric.
Proposition-centric, not product-centric.
Correct. And when you're busy selling to a specific customer segment, they've got to be able to take generic marketing materials and then tailor them to that opportunity. There's going to be white papers, there's going to be loads of frequently asked questions, standard proposal responses. They're the ones that have got to tailor this. They're a support role. They're critical. The piece that everybody misses is that somebody has got to coordinate this. You've got to create a virtual team that is focused on sales enablement. It's not sales operations, because sales enablement is both internal to your organization and it also goes to the partners simultaneously.
It's all about making sure that a vendor enables its internal sales team. If you are going through resellers, you need to extend that enablement consistently into the reseller sales teams and make sure that everything's consistent and aligned so that we don't confuse the customer, the buyer.
Correct. A lot of people go, so how do you get that sales enablement right? Is it sales ops? Is it the product house? It's not either. Sales enablement is a joint function, but it is a defined function, because while the product house creates all the core product and messaging, and the sales team needs to sell it, so sales enablement as a function serves as that link that translates product information and marketing material into the actionable audience-tuned insights. And it then frees up the salespeople to go and build those relationships and sell and do that business development. So sales enablement fill content gaps, tailor messaging, and also become very rapid communication channels when sales teams are busy functioning.
Not just an enablement and let them go, it's an enable them and then run parallel operations to keep them efficient and effective.
Correct. Sometimes it's a standalone entity, sometimes it's embedded in marketing or in the sales function, but it is a specific function that needs to be identified, and somebody needs to own it, and that's their job.
Okay.
I think that's the key thing I would say out of this. From a go-to-market perspective, you need to have an owner in the product house. You need to have an owner in the channel. You need to have an owner in sales, and those three owners work together to make this all work. Those three people, call them the sponsors, call them the managers, call them what you want, have got to have the teeth to make this happen. That's fundamental. Nobody must be able to derail them.
So with responsibility, you must have authority, otherwise it doesn't work.
Absolutely. So I've tried to crunch it down very quickly. I know you've been kind of listening because you've been asking questions. What are the takeaways from your perspective?
So I've got a few. First of all, product is the foundational role. Without product, what have you actually got? The product house is responsible for defining core features, capabilities, packaging, pricing, and that product also includes billing mechanisms and order processing. All of those things should be considered when you're formulating and building that product, and you should be doing it in relation to your market. Channel is strategic for market entry. So are you going to be direct with your own sales force? Are you going to be indirect with a reseller sales force in between you and the buyer? That's your channel to market. And the decisions around direct, indirect, the way that you enable your channels, segmentation, recruitment, onboarding of different types of resellers and partners in different markets, all of that needs to be thought about. And you also need to think about it in agile terms, because speed is an important thing when you're going to market, as well as features and capability, right?
Yep.
So that's number 2. Number 3 is around enabling your resellers. We're making sure that you've got robust enablement processes. You're providing partners with all the tools that they need to be self-sufficient. Even though you may not think they can do the whole thing, enable them to do what they can do. And everyone learns on the job, right? It's the best way to do it. So things like sales playbooks, extensive training, not just product training, but sales training and support training, certification programs, whatever you can do to make it structured and valuable to the individuals is going to improve engagement, and ultimately it's going to improve the end results. Aligning internal sales and support with your partner sales and support is key. Make sure you're all saying the same thing to the buyer. Otherwise, one of two things will happen. One, you'll confuse them. Or 2, you'll give them a little chink of light to get into where they can cause mayhem by playing one end off against the other. Everyone's got to be saying the same thing.
I think this comes back to you have got to have your proposition nailed up front, because if you've got a vacuum, everybody's going to invent their own version of the truth, and there you have a problem.
Right. Once we've got all that together, we've then got interdependencies across those functions. Make sure they're all joined up. Make sure you've got the ownership in the product house, in the go-to-market channel house, in the sales house, and you've got clear, authoritative owners to make this stuff actually happen in those separate areas and together. And then finally, make it easy.
Make sure your operations are easy. You've hit it.
We talk about customer engagement, customer experience, and easy being the predictor of a good experience. Well, it's exactly the same when you're dealing with your internal customers, your salespeople, and also your external reseller customers, and ultimately the buyer. Jan, I hope that's interesting. I hope it's useful. You've got a little bit of a structure, if nothing else, and it sounds like that's what you were lacking. And if you've still got people in the organisation that don't get it, ask them to listen to this episode. We're going to be back next time with episode, I can't believe it, 28.
In the meantime, please follow the Angus and Pete Show page on LinkedIn for news, updates, and message us directly to tell us what you want us to talk about, how we're doing, and please keep that post bag bulging.
You know that the show is available on all your favourite podcast platforms, so listen, like, subscribe, and share, and help us to spread the word.
Pete.
Yes, Angus.
We're not going to escape without a joke of the week.
So there's a guy who was walking in the forest with his dog, and his dog started nosing and pawing at something on the ground. And the guy looks and gives him the command, fetch. And the dog comes bounding over with something in his mouth. And the guy takes this object out of the dog's mouth and starts to dust it off. And it looks like an old oil lamp. So he gives it a rub and gets the mud off. And all of a sudden there's this massive flash of light and a puff of smoke. And a genie appears right in front of him. And the genie says, "You freed me. And as a thank you, I will grant you a wish of whatever you desire. But bear in mind that whilst my power is vast, I have limitations. There are 3 rules. Rule 1, I cannot make someone fall in love. Rule 2, I cannot kill. And rule 3, I cannot bring someone back from the dead. What is your wish?" The guy thinks for a few moments and he says, "I wish my product management team would create a cohesive roadmap and deliver to it on time, all of the time." And the genie rolls his eyes and says, "There are 4 rules."
You had to come up with a bloody product management joke.
Cheers, Angus.
Cheers, Pete.
Thanks for tuning in to the Angus and Pete Show. Remember, it's based on the personal views and opinions of the hosts and their guests. If you're feeling aggrieved or litigious, take a chill pill. There's already enough stress in the world. Don't forget to follow our page on LinkedIn and subscribe on your favourite podcast platform for more episodes. We'll see you next time. Oh, and tell your friends.